Rolling, man.
Rolling.
Rolling.
Let's go.
As in literally rolling this roller.
Rolling a fag as well. My brother, thank you so much, man.
Yes, Deadpool, man.
Oh,
yes.
Everybody, welcome to the Luton's Deadpool podcast today with myself, Luton's Deadpool, and the legend that he is, Mr. Glenn Jenkins.
The legend he is.
No, don't be silly. No, I've been very, very fortunate across the last few months of getting to know you better and getting to know about your history and like this place, Marsh House. Even to the point now where Marsh House is the new home of the Luton's Deadpool podcast.
There you go, man.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
There
Obviously, I still do my podcasts out elsewhere when other people want me to come to them, but this is the spot that I like to film in. It's a beautiful place, got so much heritage and history. So let's talk about you, Glenn, and then we'll go into like a little bit about Marsh House and stuff like that. So you're from Luton, yeah?
I'm born in Luton, mate. Born in Luton.
So you grew up in
Farm.
Lucy Farm, okay.
Kirkwood Road, Lucy Farm. In the 60s, 63. And then and our family and kids are brought up on Marsh Farm. Yeah, so I moved to Marsh Farm when I was 20s.
Okay.
And then lived on Marsh Farm ever since, pretty much. Raised all my kids there. Lee Manor School, Whitefield School.
Yeah.
So Luton all my life, man. You know, mum and dad. Mum's from Scotland, come down from Scotland, met my dad in London.
Oh, is it? Whereabouts in Scotland?
From Airdrie.
Okay.
She's from. And then my dad was living in Battersea.
Oh,
they met, bus driver, all that,
yeah.
Through the bus industry. Mum come down from Scotland and got a job on the buses and met me dad.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so London overflow, you know, a lot of people in Luton are London overflow people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when this town started getting bigger and Vauxhall and all that, everyone's moving out from London and overflow to Stevenage, Luton.
Yeah, that's literally what happened with my family. My family came from London and then they went to Luton and then Stevenage. And then my mum came back to Luton and that's when she had me. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, so Luton all my life. And I lived there all my life.
What's your experience of Luton? That's a big question, but like overall, if you could sum it up, like what's your overall experience of it?
Your home for one.
Yeah.
And I love Luton. Luton's unique in loads of ways. You know, particularly what I love about it is its multiculturalism.
Yeah.
It's kind of melting pot spirit. Because, you know what I mean? It's a funny town, Luton, because you've had EDL here and things like that. But at the same time, 90%, I would say, more of the population in this town not only move side by side in relative harmony, but there's interaction and cooperation. And, you know what I mean? It's not a lot
of different groups working together,
Yeah, man. You know what I mean? And across cultures as well, you know what I mean? And I think that's really more so here than some other places I've been, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Yeah, in terms of the interaction and the brother-sisterness of it, yeah. So this place here, we've got Bob Marley on the wall there, One Love.
Yes. I love it. I love the mural, man. It's like, this is honestly an iconic place for me in Luton. When, you know, I've been living here since, you know, I was born here in the 90s, you know, and living here all my life, like, there's certain parts of it where you just find it synonymous with Luton, like Jansel House. You know what I mean? You can't when you're coming from the Hitchin way, it's just bang, it's there. It's like a welcome to Luton sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Or like Marsh House. Like when you guys redeveloped it and we've got the Bob Marley mural stamped on there. It's been a massive part of my life driving past it, like learning to drive. It's like I've got different eras of my life where I can remember that being there and being such a core function of like how I identify with Luton. You know,
that's beautiful to hear because I feel that with that mural. I mean, we had Amy Ricks, the Little Red. She's an artist and Demographics. They did it, and it was kind of like we co-created it as we went along. But the main thing is he's got his hands in the heart shape, One Love, and up above it says "United we stand, together we rise."
Yeah,
and that's the spirit of this project, this house here, and this movement here.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because there's a lot of people out there that might not necessarily know about Marsh House, or maybe they only have like cursory sort of knowledge of it. So let's talk about the actual history of it. Can you give us like a little brief history of
this
Marsh House? Yeah,
for sure. This house was originally it's 200-300 years, you know, Victorian times old. It was a farmhouse, original farmhouse for tenant farmers who were working the land that is now Marsh Farm Estate. So hence Marsh Farm, the name, Tide Farm. All these estates were built on what were formerly farms. And Marsh Farm, this was the house where we've got records going back to 1600 here of Jonas Briggs, the landowner at the time. And then we've got tenants in this house from 1800s. Original ones, earliest ones we've got is Jeremiah and Anne Smith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, so the history of it is agricultural going back all that time. And then you've got from the 50s and 60s, in the 60s, the Luton Borough Council, or Luton Corporation as they were called at the time, bought this land to develop housing. So they bought the surrounding farmlands and began building Marsh Farm, Lucy Farm, Tide Farm, all those housing estates around Luton. And this house then was bought by the corporation, the council, and from the 70s onwards up until the 90s was a council-owned, run community centre. And it's legendary what went on here back in those times, you know, like there's some players in town now, you know, Muddy, Paul Jolly, Spawn, you know, people who Fahim Qureshi, people who Luton's powerhouses, man, cultural powerhouses, you know, like from Little Red, from 33 Arts Centre back in the day, down in Guildford Street, where they're running that, and closely associated with that was here. And so you had Gemini, the sound system, first started cranking up here. You know, lots of music and culture. And in that barn, just outside, there's a barn outside here called the Nissen Hut. It's an old wartime barn. And that was used as a concert venue for Crass, our local punk band, UKDK. They held a gig with Crass and Poison Girls in there, which again, Perry Louis playing soul parties, legendary stuff in terms of Luton's cultural history as well as its agricultural history. And so that was its long-term background. In 2000, we moved in to the studio at the back when it was a community centre. There was an annex at the back, which is now a studio. We converted it from what was effectively an old cowshed with plasterboard in it to a fully equipped studio.
And that's the one just there?
That's that one just there. Yeah. We were in there from 2000. The Levellers, the band, actually came to Luton in Stopsley Regional Centre and did a benefit concert to raise money for that studio.
Oh, wow.
To get it going, yeah. And so that was in 2000. And we were happily there until 2006, when the council decided they were going to shut Marsh House down completely. And when I say shut down, first of all, they shut it down and it got vandalised inside. Then they bricked it up to prevent further vandalism and sealed up the top Cytex on the top windows. And we were left in the back as the only occupant. And of course, because it was a shut down derelict now, vandalism, theft of the studio, you know what I mean? It was a nightmare period of the council allowing it to run into the ground.
Yeah.
And in 2011, we got a knock on the door saying it's now got dry rot. The building's got a case of serious dry rot in the walls and the first floor, because there was an old toilet up there with water left in it, and that had seeped into and caused dry rot.
Yeah.
Well, that's fatal for a building. And what they're saying is it will internally collapse. So we've got to evict you because they're going to level it. And we're like, are you mad? This agricultural, cultural treasure that is this place, where people come by here all the time, of memories of the adventure playground out the back, you know, memories, man, and experiences by their thousand here. And they're just going to level it, you know? So we said to them, look, because we got a background of squatting buildings.
Yeah, we'll go into that in a little while.
We'll go into that. But because we have that long history of squatting, what is one word for it? Land occupation, I would call it, to create community. Because we've got that background, we was able to say to them, look, let's not get into all that, you know, squatting, and, you know, because we would resist any attempt to demolish and do away with this.
Yeah.
Not just because we were tenants, but because of its community value. It was a madness. It was a madness to suggest it. So we said, look, here's a better arrangement. You, the council, pay for the dry rot treatment to stop it progressing anymore. And we will do the work required to put a new first floor, restore it, stop it from collapsing in the first instance, and then restore it to a new community facility from the bottom up, by
Yeah.
the community, for the community. And they agreed that. And they paid for the dry rot treatment. And then we mobilised volunteers from across Marsh Farm mainly, but around the town, who put their wonderful arms and hearts and spirits into this place. We gave them a business plan, which is crucial, saying this is how we're going to make it self-sustainable. We said we'll have a studio, we'll have a club, social club for people to do their weddings, their wakes, their community celebrations. We will have arts, we put it all in the plan. A cafe, a bar, a lot. And they said, right, go for it. And we went for it and we did it. And you look at,
it's beautiful. Do you know what? Honestly, that's a really lovely rendition of the story of it. And I have to say, if anybody's interested, and let me just check the time because I'm going to put a link to this. There you go, 10 minutes. Okay, so
link to a picture.
This is how rubbish I am, man. I've got to go and check where I'm going to put the link.
It's not rubbish,
and bam, it's going to pop up right here, yeah? And this is the link to the video.
It's getting all technical these days.
I actually send my podcast via carrier pigeon.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it.
But yeah, there's a wonderful video on YouTube where you can actually watch the restoration process.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
and oh my god, it's so inspiring to see what it was on day one when you first walked in. Yeah. So the building that we're sitting in now is just one of the most fabulous bits of restoration I've ever seen.
I'm honestly, humbly honoured to be part of a community that can do that.
Yeah,
because I tell you what, it's not been easy either, because it's all been through our own resources. So we make a little thing, maybe on an event, on the bar, and without exception, no one, we've never been paid a wage here yet. The objective is job creation, and we did get on our way before lockdown to starting to be able to create paid posts, but because the building still requires work to get it so it's fully usable, and when it's fully usable, then it can pay for itself.
Yeah, of course.
Right, so as with any business venture, if you want to call it that you go on, you have to take a lot of sweat at the outset and get it. And I'm proud to be part of a group that has that commitment to be able to dedicate themselves to doing this. And the skills involved, kind of like, and bearing in mind largely long-term unemployed people I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the skill base, like the stone that the builder refused, we'd say.
Yeah. I love that. It's just every single part of what this place is like it's the
Bob Marley.
Yeah, man. And I love that you're taking people who are, probably wouldn't get a very well paying job elsewhere, but they've got a real good skill set.
You know what it is? It's people in a way, bro. It's like it's people who are, you could call, conscientious objectors to being exploited. Yeah, so they fall out of love with workplaces and over years, and they're like round pegs in square holes.
Yeah.
They don't fit into what we'd call Babylonian values and society, and hoarding and competing, and which all leads to wars, and we're not in that. And some people want to work, they desperately want to work, but they don't want to be exploited.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to create things for community around them, and this is what this unlocks people to be able to do. So your works benefit the wider community, and that gives you when the same as Exodus, when we're doing that, we'll talk about it later. But here, when you have an event on here, like last night, it was a beautiful event here last night, and there's such happiness in the place and joy in the place, and interaction and celebration and cuddles and hugs and hands and all that, and that's the reward, if you like. You don't need money from this, you need that spirit of community.
It's on your face.
Is it?
Yeah. Little bastard.
As long as it's not a wasp.
Oh, mate, what is that?
He's welcome as long as it's not a wasp.
All right, fine. Yeah, as long as it doesn't. I don't like wasps.
Yeah,
anyway, sorry.
But just that's the point I was making. That joy, that is the reward for community building.
Yeah.
Because community is much more than the building, isn't it?
Exactly, it's true.
It's that interaction, it's that spirit, and we have multiculturalness like I've never seen here. We've had Bangladeshi weddings through to Caribbean rum and punch things, through to wakes and funerals and weddings for a whole different people in the community.
Yeah,
and it's just a magical project to be part of. And that's the truth, you know.
No, I love everything that this place is, and the whole spirit of where it originated from. I mean, you know, you got to talk about you guys, and we've got to talk about Exodus and what you guys did, because this is where I think, you know, you first formed as a person with your real strong ideals. I mean, it's probably, let's go back actually. Let's now talk about you properly. So have you always been a rebel?
I think so.
What's your first memory of doing something rebellious?
Oh, blimey. That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? My mum and dad were both trade union activists. Mum worked at Electrolux, dad worked at Whitbreads. I remember my dad organised a sit-in at Whitbreads when I was a little kid, you know what I mean? And then dad's in the paper and that down occupied Whitbreads. And he was a drayman who worked there. So they both had union activism in their blood. So I guess that's where my attraction to that kind of life comes from. But I remember when I was quite young, actually, I remember being about 14 or 15 and thinking, I'm a bit more radical than my mum and dad. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It was one of them ones. I'm thinking, you know, like, you know, just issues, man. What were issues at the time? Whereas in my family, to not be fervently anti-Irish Republican, for example, was like not on.
Yeah.
You know, this. Whereas for me, because I was kind of, I don't know, I don't know what it is that allows someone to be able to see the other side.
Yeah, that's what it is, isn't
of
it?
a challenging problem, you know what I mean? And to be able to say, well, let me hear from that person who I'm not even allowed to hear from. Because back in my day, the Sinn Féin and that, who are now government in Ireland, were banned from being able to even speak.
Yeah, terrorists.
You know what I mean?
Right,
Terrorists, like branded, right? It's terror. It was in there, weren't we?
We're going again.
Come again. And come again.
I'm going to have to figure this shit out a
Give me
lot
time to
better.
have a fag.
Oh, yeah, you've been able to roll a fag at least.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so we've just, unfortunately, I'm having some technical issues. I don't know why. Yes, this is still teething problems, even though this is now the 53rd episode of my podcast. I'm still having teething problems. I'm just going to have to hold this microphone like this and make sure it doesn't start changing colour, because that's what just happened. Microphone's cut out. We spoke for about 20 minutes. Oh, God.
So you can see the green light if you just hold it like that?
Yep, I've just got to hold it like this.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so what we had talked about such a huge range of issues and of things that I think I feel really bad that people aren't going to get to hear. But you know what? It was just a nice chat. It was a nice chat. So what I did want to talk about, though, which you were kind of discussing, and we're going to go straight back into now, is the Exodus movement, right? So I know it's a bit rubbish having to retell the first part, but luckily we didn't get too deep into it. Yeah. So if you could just kind of give us, like, what is Exodus to you? Like, how did it start? What did it mean to you to be a part of it? All that sort of stuff.
In a nutshell, Exodus started from me and we, the people who founded and formed it, being part of a large, millions strong in the country, thousands strong locally, group of people who were excluded from mainstream work, mainstream culture, by being skint, basically. Long-term unemployment, post-Thatcher, it was shut down. Everything around us was shutting down, you know, Vauxhall, Whitbread, blah, it's all shutting down. And so consequently, you're left with a load of empty buildings, a load of closed down farms, a load of people who are sitting doing nothing all day long. You know what I mean? And that atmosphere, that environment leads to us to think, you know what, we're going to have to do things for ourselves. Yeah, because one outlet we did have from that exclusion was what you could call the non-commercial, the free party scene. So free raves, Castle Morton, Spiral Tribe, all this. We used to go to these and have the best time. It was like freedom from all the trapped downness. And the next thing, they get attacked. The government passed laws, and then the next thing is police and helicopters and dogs and gas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like what you were saying previously, the bit that people didn't really get to hear is that it sort of went from being there was a free and open space of where you could experience this mad party atmosphere to now it was being shut down essentially in being controlled in these commercial environments, like you said, with the fences and sort of
Squeezing it into
entry
a commercial.
fees. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is how Exodus came about.
We a reaction to that, our reaction to that, to being continually traveling 150 miles only to be dog van and choppered, you know what I mean? You know, and, you know, violence committed against people on an extreme level, you know what I mean? For dancing in a field in the middle of nowhere and no one can't even hear it. You know, what's going on there? What was going on there was the police for the state corralling it back into the safety of the commercial environment. Yeah, that's what they were doing. They'd say it was for safety. We'd say no, it's for safety of your profits. That's what it was for. Right. So that in that environment, we decided in Luton, do you know what? We'd do it in Luton, in our own town, right? And we even approached the council and the police and put a proposal to them to put on free events.
Why was it so important it was free?
Because that's the crucial key difference, is open to all. Yeah, not select how much money you've got, particularly being whether you can come in or not. So ours was pound for the sound on the gate if you've got it. Yeah, if you ain't, come in, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a community thing, and that makes all the difference in the spirit of the thing. As I said to you before.
Yeah, please retell that, because otherwise we're going to lose that. That was actually brilliant.
Well, it's the spirit of the thing. If you're in my house and I invite you around for a meal and you have some food and you have nice wine and you have a cup of tea and that. And then as you get up to go, I'll go to you, oh, by the way, it's $8.50 for the meal and $3.50 for the wine, and you had two. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
All of a sudden you think, okay, there's a different reason I'm here then, you know what I mean? Right. But what I'm saying is that commercialism breeds a different spirit. So when you put on an event that isn't about that, because there's only two big powerful forces in the world, love and money.
Yeah.
Jesus would call it God and mammon. Yeah. Right. So love of wealth and love of personal gain and all of that, that spirit pervades the whole of this society. You know, whole society is pinned down on these founding values of hoarding. So it's all right to hoard, someone to be billionaires while there's people not even with running water.
Yeah.
And hoarding and competing. So we all compete like rats after a piece of cheese. Nah, man, we ain't in that. Right. So if Exodus was about, let's do it for a different reason. So it's free, for a different values system. So it's cooperative, it's sharing and cooperation, not hoarding and competing. It's a mirror image opposite in terms of our reasons for doing it. And that breeds love, man. You know what I mean? All of a sudden the collective grew overnight because I'm an engineer, I'm a generator, I've got a generator, I've got some boxes, I've got a speaker. Can I play on the set? You know what I mean? Everyone wants to be involved now. And it got so beautiful in just a matter of months. Yeah, June the 5th, 92, 31 years ago today.
Yep. Happy birthday. So we've got to say it again. We said it already, we'll say it again.
Right. 31 years ago today, when we did that began this kind of come in, be welcome, find your niche. That's what we used to call it. People, how can I get involved? So just be there, man. You'll find your niche. Where you fit, you'll find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people are photographers, and some people are writers, and some people are builders, and some people are artists. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody's got this new canvas, which is Exodus. Yeah, come and do your thing. So there's man painting up Bob Marley drapes and bringing it to us full of love and joy. No money.
Yeah.
Saying I made this, man, because we're like, bro, man, and next thing we've got a brother now.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's this magnetic attraction to love, for love, not money. Yeah. And that unlocked, so that June the 5th we started. By December the 31st, 92, was 10,000 people there.
Oh, wow.
In 6 months. So when we said Exodus, because it wouldn't be a trickle, that far exceeded my own expectation. So I mean, all of a sudden it's whoomp, it's gone from hundreds to thousands. Yeah. And we're convoying through town. And time after time after time after time, because by the way, we've got some underpinning core values, not just on showing them, but non-violence too. Non-violence is a big part of our practice. And really and truly, if you're organised, you don't need to be violent when there's 10,000 of you. We're just saying to the police, sorry, mate, we're coming through. Right? It's a protest, we're coming. And done nicely as well, I have to say. You know what I mean? Like, even the old Bill would have to salute that themselves.
Yeah.
Right? In fact...
Because they're probably not expecting it at all.
No, if I weren't expecting it, they weren't expecting it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, Mike? You know, if we weren't expecting it, if it got bigger than it got bigger than they thought too. And all of a sudden you're having this impact on local market, pubs, clubs. You're having a negative impact on them. And you draw up opposition to you. And then that opposition forms. So the landowner whose quarry you squatted, the police who had to move out the way and they didn't like it, to the licensed victuallers association who are seeing pub profits going down by 40% every time we play.
Yeah.
They all start getting together.
Yeah.
And there comes this common association of people who don't want you to be about me. Right. So next thing we go into, I'm proud and honoured to be part of this. There was an 8-year campaign of civil disobedience, mass mobilising, all amount of means used to try and stop it, and they couldn't, because it was good in the true sense of that word, not just good party, good people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Community. So some of the coppers who are standing over there trying, you know, on lines and that, their brother-in-law's over there and their uncle's, you know what I mean? It's like proper communities. My brother's a copper at that time, you know what I mean? So, you know, it was like, it's so into community that, unlike some fields out in Castle Morton or the middle of nowhere, we're in Luton. And tomorrow we're all in Luton still. So, you know,
let's go again.
It's gone green.
Oh my gosh. This is a nightmare. This is an actual nightmare. Don't worry, we didn't miss any of that.
You can edit that. Though.
I can try and edit them bits out to make it look a bit smoother. This is actually such a nightmare.
Productions.
I have 4 more podcasts this week.
Wow.
Yeah, I need to get this shit sorted. Oh man. Yeah, I need like an Exodus level sort of help here. If there's anyone out there that can sort me out.
Technical stuff. Anyhow.
No, yeah, so you were saying about the relationship with police.
Yeah, that like I say, you know, like me and you and Steve were talking earlier, one of the things about it is, because we are community and we all live here, and, you know, we're not looking to have big punch ups and that, you know, with the police. And we knew as well that if you do that, you know, if it's going to be that, then it ain't going to last 5 minutes, because ultimately they've got the force. But not only that, we always used to say, whether it was in the squats, at the dance, it has to be so that your nan could come and love it as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I love that. I love that.
You know what I mean? People's nan have been to our do, man. And
seriously,
loved it. Seriously. We've had people of all ages there. And the thing is, you don't only want everyone who's up for a fight either. You want the community. So that can't be part of it. And because of that, that allowed us, despite the police force doing its utmost to wipe us out, basically. And that's a long story, but multiple times, you know, when we've had charges brought with. In fact, the charges were so many of them, and so obviously not kosher, right? Frame ups, that Bedfordshire County Council ended up voting unanimously for a civil rights inquiry into the activities of Beds Police and others, against Exodus Collective and others.
Wow.
Because there were so many occasions where they threw dirt at us to try and demonise us, basically, in the community. If they can't stop us, then they'll stop us in other ways. And those ways become really dirty, really, to the point where the council voted unanimously across Tory, Liberal and Labour, we need a civil rights inquiry, chaired by Michael Mansfield QC, who was the leading civil rights QC. Ended up the Home Office wouldn't pay for it. But the fact that the council voted for it means I don't have to tell you how bad it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it was
for them to make a statement like that, like that's huge.
Exactly.
That's absolutely huge.
And for us, that's a win. You don't need an inquiry. People know. And plus, all of the multiple dozens of court cases all collapsed in a heap, which is why they wanted an inquiry, because they were fraudulent. You know, they weren't genuine charges.
Yeah.
So you know, so that long history there of, it took 8 years, and then at the end of it in 2000, millennium, we'd always been saying, look, let's sit down, round table. In fact, I would leave them a message at every occupation we did. We'd leave notice for them saying, anytime you want to sit down and resolve this on our terms. So sharing and cooperation. Yeah, not hoarding and competing. And sensible policies, not mad policies that create danger in themselves, you know, health and safety dangers. Anytime you want to sit down, we're up for it. And in 2000, I got a call at home from Ivor Twidell, who was the chief of police at that time. I'm like, hello, what's going on here? And he's like, was it Ivor? I can't remember. Chief of police anyway called us and said, you're always saying you want meetings to resolve this. We've got a landowner who wants to speak to you about exactly that. And we're like, well, amen to that. Who is it? And he said, it's the Duke of Bedford. And we're like, Duke of Bedford, like the biggest landowner in England, never mind. And do you know what it was? Do you know what it was, bro? It was one of the venues we're squatting. Several of them were what he would call Andrew. He became known as to us. I'll tell you a story. He became a good friend, actually. You know what I mean? It was really strange and surreal. But what it was is one of the venues we're playing, which was a beautiful cutting, yeah, with trees either side and stack up one end and just people on the hill, beautiful, was on right next to the 18th hole of his golf course.
Oh, okay.
And we're talking world style golf course here.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's got Tiger Woods and all them at the Open PGA or whatever it was coming to his site in 2000. And that meant an enormous pressure on him to make sure that we ain't.
You guys aren't there, basically. Yeah.
So we all of a sudden notice this up in raiding us, you know, to and from the parties. Bang, bang, they're hitting us again like the old days have come back, yeah. And because that didn't work either, this is what brought this call about, to say, look, let's talk. And long story short, 6 of us went and met him. We sat down with him I said to them, actually, when the police rang, I said, yeah, we'll tell him to put it on headed note paper from Woburn Abbey, yeah, which is where he lived, where he still lives there. Actually, Andrew, the Duke now, was Marquis of Tavistock at the time. So 2 down from, but sadly his parents died, or his dad died. So he's now the Duke of Bedford.
Okay.
And we meet with him in his office in Woburn Abbey. I said to him, put it on headed notepaper. And sure enough, we get this letter next day. Yeah, man, from Woburn Abbey, you know, from Woburn Abbey. We was all like, oi! You know, like, yeah. And it said, please come in and meet us and we'll talk about resolving this long-standing problem and all that. So we went down there and we met him. And do you know, the first exchange we had, we'd wrote him a letter back with our headed notepaper. And on ours it says Exodus, movement of Ja people. Right?
Yeah.
And with a nice coloured lion on it and all that, yeah. And he goes to me, Ja people. And I said, yeah. And he said, what's that? I said, well, Ja, innit? Jehovah. This is like movement of Ja people, Bob Marley, God. And he goes, do you believe in God? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, there we've got something in common straight away.
Oh, that's nice, man. Sort of similar grounds.
Well, the thing is, I jumped straight back at him and said, because we'd already said to him, we'll call you Andrew, yeah? He's like, yeah, because we don't call no one Lord. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, I said to him, so, well, if we both believe in God, you know, like I know, then this is God's land, not yours.
Yeah.
So it's ours, not yours. And he goes, I'm completely happy with that. You know what I mean? I said, well, then that's what we're here for, to talk about access to land, respectful access to land. And man, we got on with him. He took us out in his motor, 5 of us, drove us around in this big motor, looking at different sites, which we were saying to him, suitable. Yeah, man. You know what I mean? Can you imagine, isn't it?
You must have been pinching yourself.
Man, we was 8 years trying to wipe us out.
Yeah, and then now, you sat in a fancy car with a G.
Man, me, Biggs, Bouncer, Hazard. Right, we're like, wow, man. Do you know what I mean? What's going on? And he was so lovely, man. Right, he was so lovely, this guy. And he told us a story, man. He said, he goes, some years ago, he goes, some Hell's Angels, he thought they were, bikers, took over an empty property of theirs. He said, and, you know, the family were on, like, you know, heavy-handed, get the police in, like, and he said, let me go and talk to them, you know. And he went and talked to them. And he had a really fruitful exchange with them, you know what I mean? Got on with them, and he arranged a date when they would go. And he was saying, for me, that saved all of the stress of the conflict, of the unnecessary conflict. And we're saying, that's exactly the same scenario here, man. Do you know what I mean? It's, right. And if you asked him now, he'd say, in fact, he went in the newspaper and said, I find it easier to get on with them than I do with some of the authorities. You know what I mean?
That's funny, that.
Yeah. So that ended with us doing Free the Spirit Festival, which we've been doing unlawfully, they would say, up until that day. Lawfully, open, free, all of that, no charge for the land. All right, that was the deal, right? Respectful use of the land. And he went out of his way to help us access that land. Like, for example, there's a health and safety thing in the middle of it. Was this old fallen down house, used to be, but it's now dead, but it's dangerous, you know what I mean? And he's like, don't worry, I'll knock that down. And bang, he's knocked it down. He's got a digger in, knocked it down. Whereas for us, I would have to fence that off. And, you know what I mean? He's got the resources to go smack. And Howard, his team, his estates team, if you ask them now, I mean, I'm not sure they're all here now, but they enjoyed the experience. We enjoyed the experience of working with them, and they enjoyed the experience of working with us. And then sometime later in the paper, he made those comments when we were campaigning for something else, for Free the Spirit, to permanentise festivals in Luton at Sundon Pits. And he came out and publicly supported that.
Oh,
said,
wow.
Like, you know, that would be a permanent resolution to this long-standing problem. So, you know, it just shows you, you know, that after all that conflict, jaw was better than war if they wanted to solve it. Because they were never going to beat us. Because we're us. But it's not me. It's the community as a whole.
Exactly. And it's a more powerful thing than just one person.
Well, man, I mean, the thing is, when they tried to penalise us for it, took me to court, and they kept saying me as an individual personally, to the extent Luton Borough Council injuncted me 3 times, personally me, no one else, just me, as though like take me out,
as if you was the
and then
one,
and then everything will stop, and even the judge said to them, you know, I showed them that on a couple of parties I was away on holiday, and the party's still happening.
Yeah,
you know, it's not me doing this. I'm just speaking for the group. Yeah.
I'm useless at most of it. I think that's what's going on. This USB problem.
Is it?
I'm gonna have to sit on my computer for bloody all of today now. I can just feel it. Oh. when problems occur on this podcast, they are just endless. I mean, you guys will understand. You do stuff with music and everything. You know, mate, exactly what I'm talking about. It's like there's ghosts in the system sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just start messing with you.
Yeah, man. No. Gremlins,
that's the one. So just obviously after Exodus, you mentioned Has Manor. What was that?
When Exodus is doing our dances and you're occupying these different spaces and places, like for example, one space we occupied was a derelict pig farm.
Okay.
When you're there and big amounts of the crowd, amongst those crowd is homeless people, some of us included, like sofa dwellers and things like that, you're in the space and the sun comes up and you're thinking, wow, what could we do with this? And because we had the sound system, bringing in the pound for a sound and the bar's where the main income's coming from this. So there's a big volunteer-run bar, whole heap of Stella, whole heap of vodka, whole heap of, you know what I mean? Right, and so you're getting like a couple of grand, few grand every dance. And there's a collective formed, is that the week after, everyone can sit down and say, right, we've got this, what we're going to do? Let's buy a Jeep because we need that for health and safety. Rah, rah, rah. You know, this whole beautiful process of poor people who ain't got 2 pennies to rub together, collectively, all of a sudden we've got a couple of grand every couple of weeks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm not talking me, I'm talking a big group of people. Yeah. And then we're going, so when we're in these buildings, because one of them was an old hospice, right? We didn't play a party there, but we knew it was empty and derelict. And we started this policy of occupying empty buildings, not for a dance, but for a home, right? Mm-hmm. And it started off with what used to be called the Oakmoor Hotel on Marsh Road. People will remember that. Older people will remember there was the Oakmoor Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shut for years, all grown over, horrible metal fence around it. It was an eyesore and a danger to kids climbing in there. And but to me and to us, it was like, what an insult to the homeless people of Luton that there can be this 28 bedroom place.
Yeah, and it's just unused.
Just there for years, bro. Yeah. For years.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, because the developers got this plan and that plan, and while they're all having their plans, we're all homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
So originally we was going to paint along the front of it, this is an insult to the homeless of Luton. But then we're like, no, forget that. Right, let's occupy it. Let's occupy
let's go the next step.
Yeah, but the thing was, this was the thing, again, because we're community, we're not like a load of anarcho squatters coming in, going to paint anarchy on the wall, sniffing glue and doing all that. Right, what we're doing is, as soon as we've occupied it, the first thing we did is beautify it from the outside, so the neighbours think, oh, what a joy.
It's back, isn't it? It looks better than ever. Yeah, exactly.
So we were gardening, we took the metal fences down, and then when we've done that, and the shopkeeper opposite is like, oh, come on, man, I've got about 35 people here now who are going to be buying milk in the morning and all that. So we're over with him, yes, mate, like, this is what we're doing. We've got a leaflet. We went around every door in all the adjoining streets and told them what we were doing and said, look, right, this is, and what we were saying to the owner, who was a thing called Kelly Construction.
Oh, yeah, I know them.
Right, we wrote to them and we said, look, give us a peppercorn rent and we'll restore and use until your plans have come to fruit. Because you've been 5 or 6 years now. You're taking the piss, you know what I mean? Right? But there's an offer, right? And what we would do is use our combined housing benefits entitlements. Now, those housing benefit entitlements, you have to remember, up until then, we're being paid to squat landlords, 6 people in a house in some cases, taps ain't working, ceilings dripping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that guy's getting all that money, our housing benefit. It should be called landlord benefit because he's benefiting, not us.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So for us to redirect that money into restoring this derelict building, so we learn building skills, we learn organisation, we're all co-cooking for each other. All that goodness, instead of giving it to these landlords, was a sensible thing. So we squatted it, made that case, but because the dance was in peace talk stage, and then that all went a bit skewiff, and these people I'm telling you about rounded on us and come and hit us with a massive raid. That kind of knocked those conversations out with the police about regularising this place. And the next thing we knew, there was 55, 60 cops arriving in the morning, snowing, bang, man, coming, smashed all the windows, trashed it, rock up a couple of people with a few bats and that.
Yeah.
And a few people got, not bad, you know what I mean, but scary, man. And they evicted everybody on this snowy morning. And Anglia News were there and all that. But we'd kind of preempted that. We knew that that was a strong possibility when we'd sent them the letter. And we'd planned already that if that happens, we go from this privately owned building to this public authority owned, council owned building on the A6, which was St Margaret's Hospice, closed down for years.
Yeah.
Again. So as soon as they hit us there in high profile on the telly and that, we then that afternoon moved the operation to this new squat and then served the same offer onto the Beds County Council and said, look, we're a cooperative, we'll get housing benefits in and we'll restore this, right, that you've left to sit derelict. And through good support from Luton Borough Council, Tom Shaw, who was a housing chair at the time, he was one of the ones who weren't scared to come and talk to us. A lot of them were scared to come and talk to us because we're these outlaws.
Yeah, it sounds dangerous almost.
And the police are spinning them a load of bullshit, about, they're this and they're that and they're this and they're smearing us left, right and centre, right? You had to be brave to not listen to that and come and speak to us. But we were getting it front page and all that, But Tom Shaw came and spoke to us and he said, look, we'll support you to register the cooperative. It needs to be registered. And we said, 100%, right? So we formed a thing called Housing Action Zone Cooperative. And from that, using housing benefits, I mean, we had to get the kitchen into use first to be able to have running water and all that, so we could charge housing benefits.
Yeah, of course.
And then we formed a cooperative, and all of a sudden you've got 36 people, tenants, times £40 a week, which was cheaper than the landlord.
That's quite a bit of money, isn't it?
It's quite a bit of money, man. It's a couple of grand every week. And so meetings would be held. At that, I was humbly honoured to be part of this. I didn't live there yet, so I was vice chair and then stepped back so that the tenants themselves were.
That's good, like keeping the governance of the place within the place.
Man,
yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
You know, it's crucial, that is. You know, I mean, not outside governance and bosses and all that. And then what they did, every couple of weeks there'd be a meeting, and it was beautiful because they would say, right, Nancy's pregnant. We need to corral resources to making her flat ready. And when I say flat, bro, have a look on the films, man. I'm talking like beautiful.
Really?
I'm talking like wagon wheels in the wall, stained glass. John Murphy, one of our guys, he's like a stained glass man. You know, this man is a chippy. This man is a builder. This man is learning electrics. And now there's a whole heap of people, in Luton who have got companies or whatever, or work.
After starting like that.
Yeah, they learned their trade on doing this,
Wow,
and again, I'm humbly
impressive.
honoured and proud to be part of that.
I was going to say, for me as well, just hearing that makes me really proud to think that, like, you've been able to have something like that where it's actually, like you said before about this place and about job creation, that's essentially what you was doing.
Well, now you can see where the spirit of this place comes from. Yeah, because we were doing it over many years. And that's why I say, when we talk to them about not closing this place down, you've got that track record.
Yeah.
You carry that with you. In some ways, that's a negative because people are a bit scared. On the other hand, it's like people, you say, we will do that.
Yeah.
We would squat it. We would if we had to.
Yeah.
Don't make us have to.
Come on, let's not do it again.
Let's be sensible.
Yeah.
And then common sense arrives.
Yeah.
So, so that's where the spirit of this sort of regeneration of dead spaces comes from. And one crucial thing I have to say about why we do that, obviously, from being in that environment where there's all these empties and loads of unemployed, skilled people, it's kind of natural in a way for people to take matters into our own hands. But crucially, because we took over this Marsh House building and it was a derelict which would now be gone if it wasn't for us, that means we want a £1 a year peppercorn rent. And the reason we want that is because the rents here, the beers here, the food here is all lower price than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
You have commercial overheads and you have to charge commercial prices. And there starts again, he can't afford it, so he can't come in and all that. So when you restore derelicts, you've got the advantage of not having these big commercial overheads like rents and that to have to pay. So your activities can be affordable too. Because for us, there's two ways of alleviating poverty. One is people get more money.
Yeah,
the other way is the money you've got goes further.
Spend better. Yeah, exactly. That's such a good point.
Goes further, So we're into creating jobs as well, so that people can earn their own income and living wages and all that. We're big into that. But crucially as well, it's got to be that the little money people do have goes further here because it's affordable, from renting a space here to eating here, to drinking here, to hiring the place for your wedding. It's all much cheaper than you would expect to pay compared to other places.
Yeah.
And again, that's about us building this alternative economy that's not based on rinsing people.
Well, I can see a lot of this in Enough is Enough.
Yeah.
In what you... 11 minutes 40.
Really?
Bang on the door. Let me see if I can just take it out and put it in.
40 goes quick, man.
Okay, look, I think it's back on.
Yeah, just in and out.
See? Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's talk about Enough is Enough.
Yeah.
So how did that start?
So some brilliant people in this town who I met through activism in the town, particularly when Jeremy Corbyn happened. There was a surge of coming together, if you like, of different activists in the town, many of whom I knew anyway. But there's some particularly gifted activists in this town Taj Ali being one of them.
Yeah, big up Taj.
Yeah, big up Taj, man. Right, so take Taj and then times 10 that for the Enough is Enough group. In there's a whole range of young people, you know, who are passionately committed to making the world a better place and fighting injustice and that. And I met them through the Enough is Enough Tribune thing, yeah. So the Tribune thing was Taj's initiative.
Yeah.
Because he's a Tribune journalist and a Tribune group.
Yeah.
And then from that, when Enough is Enough nationally started to happen, Taj has those connections with Eddie Dempsey and
he's
Lynch.
a very, very well-known person on Twitter and stuff.
He's fantastic, man. He's a gem, man. Taj is a gem.
We're very, very lucky to have him.
We sure are.
Really
we sure are. And same goes without mentioning all the names. The rest of the Enough is Enough group is full of wonderful, community-spirited people. Yeah. So when that happened, Enough is Enough, and because enough is enough, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know
it is.
Like, and everyone's,
I'm fed up.
Everyone's feeling that, bro. You know what I mean? So that was a good title to hang on to. And because it was and is not about the top-down syndrome, it's about bottom-up trade union struggle and community activism from below. So Acorn were involved, railway unions were involved, you know, so unions and community activism. That's where I live. You know, that's my home. Yeah. So for us, that's what needs to happen. Bottom up development, we call it, by the people, for the people. And Enough is Enough, unlike some other campaigns, came from the struggle that the train unions were having. And I'm a train driver by career, by training. So I've got a lot of affinity with ASLEF and the National Union of Railway, which is now the RMT. So that's why we got involved. And again, having this space as a place where those great people doing great things can come and do great things is wholly why we did this space.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot harder for Enough is Enough to exist without Marsh House.
Well, it would
still exist, but it'd be this is where it happens.
Yeah,
you know
well,
what I mean?
It enables not just that, not just enough, but other things as well here. You know, Luton Urban Radio upstairs.
Yeah, big up Luton Urban.
What a fantastic.
Mr. B and I love these.
All them men and women of Luton Urban Radio. Again, soldiers all over the shop. You know what I mean? Like people who are soldiers for good, man. You know what I mean? They want to make the world a better place, and they do it with music, and they do it with community, and they do it with messaging, and they do it, you know. So to host that for me is a better buzz than getting paid money for it. Do you know what I mean? It's like for us, that's what this is about. So Enough is Enough was one of those things that's been using this space to develop itself, and I'm encouraged by it because we not only had a brilliant launch where I met you actually down at the church, down at the St Mary's Church.
That was awesome down there. It
was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was insane.
It was fantastic.
So weird being in such an old, hallowed building.
It was beautiful. It was very appropriate.
It was,
you know, because that's one of Luton's finest and biggest buildings. Even though there are religious, you know, maybe issues.
Well, yeah, I know that. So there were some people who weren't very happy with it being used, but then talking to Peter at St Mary's, he doesn't seem to care at all. He seems to be like, this is about people and God is about people and we should be there for people.
Exactly, man.
And it's just a very simple way of looking at it, but it's really effective.
Well, to me, that was an example of Enough is Enough genuinely being about community, right? Being practiced. Because, you know, to be honest with you, when I spoke to Peter first, there was not a concern at all, but a consideration that it might have been seen as a bit political.
Mm.
And I said to Peter, well, Jesus was a bit political, wasn't he? You know what I mean? Particularly when it comes to like defending the rights of poor people and all that.
Exactly.
You know? And Peter's on that anyway. Peter believes that and knows that, and as does the vicar man who is in charge of the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, damn, I can't forget his name. I can't remember his name. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. His name slipped from me as well. But,
same here. But there's some great people within that church.
No, he's a top guy, man. And we met with him, himself and Taj and that. And he was, again, sort of super up for it, super on it, spoke at the thing. So I really rated that. You know what I mean? I really rated that. And
we got to have Zara Sultana come down as well.
Zara was brilliant.
Big guest.
I went to Al Quds restaurant.
Oh yeah,
with Zara and a few others.
Oh yeah,
Al Quds, man. Have you been there?
Yeah, I haven't been there
Come
yet.
on,
I
man.
haven't been there
Everyone
yet.
go to Al Quds downtown.
Yeah,
man.
I'll check it out.
Palestinian grub, man. It's banging.
I've heard it's supposed to be quite good.
But... it is. I went in there with Loki actually.
Oh yeah.
When he played here, I went in there. We walked in and there was these kids sitting there and they went, "Are you Loki?" He's like, yeah. It's like, one of them ones. No, it's a great place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that, Zara, Eddie Dempsey.
Yeah. Eddie's such a lovely man as well.
He's beautiful, isn't he?
He's wicked. Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, me and him had a good chat as well.
But
no, so that whole Enough is Enough, not only bringing that together, but now they've got together and had a great initiative where they've gone to councillors pre-election with these 5 pledges. And the power of pledges isn't like that you're daft enough to think, okay, the council have pledged to end poverty. That means poverty is going to end. But the councillors have pledged to support initiatives in housing, in poverty relief, in community assemblies, crucially. So a participatory form of democracy we're going to try and grow in Luton. They've pledged to support that. So it's up to us now, the people, not wait for the council to do it, because that ain't what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, no.
Right, but the council have pledged to support you and me and others who do that. So the work's now for us to do. But again, intelligent thinking by the EIE, Enough is Enough group, because them pledges have been carefully worded to not be unachievable dream pipe nonsense.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we've got some plans which we're working on, which those pledges can be mobilised to support, So I like Enough is Enough. I think it's a great group of people, and I think Luton's blessed with it, and I'm sure it's got some work coming up, which is
yeah.
Yeah,
it definitely has, and I can't wait to get more involved. I've come and spoken at 2 separate things. There was the teachers rally, and then there was actually I met you first outside town hall.
You did, yeah. Sorry,
that was the first time I met you, and I got to hear you speak, and oh my gosh, it was so passionate and beautiful. That
was a beautiful demo. That
it was.
Do you remember we ended up singing Redemption songs?
Yeah, we did.
All the council was looking out the window, and that touched them, man.
No, but that's the thing. I definitely feel like we need more of that in Luton. Luton's a birthplace of fighting the man. You know what I mean? For me, I see it as being a real big social action. Sort of.
I saw some at Gary Sweet. I rate him because I love his attitude of right, we're in the Prem, we're staying at Kenilworth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? I've actually heard,
that.
I met Gary Sweet a couple of times, and when I was asking him about the stadium, he said to me that they could have got that built ages ago, but they would have had to take money they didn't want to take.
No, I rate him, man, because I don't know if you saw it. There was an article in the paper, and it was headline. I think it might have been taken from Gary, but it said Luton, the team that refuses to give up, from the town that refuses to give up.
Yeah,
and I thought that was, that's Luton.
Yeah, it is big time, man. I
love his spirit.
There's a lot of people that can relate to that are from this town as well, to come from absolutely nothing.
Imagine when Harlan's walking through Kenilworth Road, man. It's going to be brilliant. Up the back steps, mate. Get him up the back steps.
Seeing him like Pelly Ruddock in the Premier League, it's like that is just
fantastic. They deserve
that's
it.
the big. Fantastic. I know that it's all about Luton here, but I mean, Pelly's story really resonates with a lot of people as well. When he signed for Luton, he came from West Ham and he was a failure there. Right, it's cost us like 50 grand, and to go from the non-league with Luton as a player that's kind of seen as a failure to every year staying in the first team and just going up and up and up and up until now in the Premier League.
Fantastic.
The man hasn't not been in the first team the whole time. He's always been that speaks volumes about him.
Big him up, man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm desperate for a statue of him to be commissioned.
Get him on the podcast, man.
I would love to. Yeah. Do you know what? I'd love to, seriously.
You have to wait, though, because he's still partying.
Yeah.
That was great when he was late, because he was like,
was you there?
I wasn't there, but I was at Wembley, but not in the parade. Yeah. I picked my daughter up from the airport.
The parade was...
We're back.
Yeah, no, you said about how you saw
I was watching the speeches from the stage on my phone, and next thing they're like, and it just stops, and then the commentator on the BBC says, "Oh, someone's in the crowd," and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And it all stopped for a bit. So that was my first awareness of it. And then Rob's texting me going, "Another one's gone down, another one's gone down." I think started to get a bit worried.
It's actually really weird. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
one at a time, and at 1.2 happened at the same time. Yeah, it was crazy.
But that was the only little tiny horrible bit of a fantastic year and day for Luton Town, man. You know, I mean, town generally.
So someone told me as well. They were looking at the odds, and it was Luton stay to go down was 7-4, which I was like, what?
If they go down with parachute payments,
we'll be fine.
You build to go back up and stay up, don't you? That's the plan, isn't it? I mean, you know, if they could have managed that, then
I feel like we could stay up.
I think we've
got a good chance of staying up. I mean, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to go down.
Has Gary got any money for players?
I think they're getting 150 mil for going up.
Don't tell anyone, but I'm a Fulham fan, actually.
Oh, you just told everyone. You just told everyone.
You know what I mean? But I'm a Lutonian first. So
yeah,
like, when
of course.
That event there the other day, them getting promoted, is obviously fantastic for the club, the ground, but for the town as a whole. And do you know what I love? Again, from going right back to the start of this interview about multiculturalism and seeing the bus going through Bury Park and the people with the drums the other night. And, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I'm old enough to remember when the Luton Town games in Bury Park was quite a scary experience for a lot of the Pakistani, Kashmiri, Bangladeshi community in Luton. Do you know what I mean? It was quite a scary experience because there's all this thuggery outside their front door. People, I could show you old films of people with bricks through their windows of their car, and to see that beautifulness, you know, fermented out of it with like everybody just loving.
Well, I have to say, I mean,
man.
you was there at the ground, on in Wembley. Right?
I was there.
Like for me,
thank you to Ray, Viv, Daisy, all them people who took me there. Jay, they
gave
me a surprise ticket, man.
Oh, that's wicked. I'm glad you got to go, Glenn. Man. That's awesome. But for me, like when the Coventry player missed, and I just looked around and everyone erupted into tears of joy, and for the fact that maybe their dad wasn't there. He used to take them when they were a kid, and they would, pray into the sky, like, and then we were all hugging and kissing each other. Then it broke into dance and song, and it was a joyous occasion. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. I've been to a lot of like games, like really high, like pressure intensity games where we've won a cup or like whatever team it is I've gone to watch, but I've never seen anything like that before.
No,
when there's 36,000 people in arms together, and that speaks volumes about our team, but it speaks volumes about our town more than anything.
It does, man.
Because that is the true spirit of Luton.
Absolutely, man.
And do you know what? Honestly, like movements like yours and like ones that you've got involved with over the years, and things like now, like Enough is Enough. This is what we have to utilise with that same kind of passion to get people to come out, support things like that. Because ultimately, people like you are fighting for their rights. They might not know it. This is a problem we was talking about earlier when you were saying about the budget and stuff like that. The man that makes the budget, he knows all about it, but then his neighbours on either side haven't got a clue.
That's right.
And do you know what? We need to be more aware of these things. The only way we are aware of these things is through people like yourself. So,
well, you know what? We're just with that in mind. I mean, I'm just me, innit? You know what I mean? But the community, as you rightly said earlier, the skill base in there in the community. We do a thing called Plugging the Leaks on Marsh Farm, which was about measuring some of that skill base, the skills audit, about looking where the money we spend goes to, and surveyed the estate and that. But the point is that for us we're going to pilot in Marsh Farm now, quarterly, so spring, summer, autumn, winter, quarterly people's assemblies, where local residents can get involved in decision making, hold service providers to account, either to applaud or moan about not.
I like that. I really like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Having both, not just because sometimes it's all about complaining, right?
If it's that, then I wouldn't be part of that, because not only is it bad spirited, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just makes people.
You need to hold up the good eggs, right? Because then they need to maybe have a little bit more say.
Yeah. But from the provider's point of view, there's no getting away from it. When Prince Charles comes to Luton, they sweep the streets a bit better. Right. And also when their bosses happen to appear at an assembly in a month's time, it tends to have the same effect. You know what I mean? Like, people are more attentive to our problems. And the problem with places like Marsh Farm in the wider town scheme, if anyone's going to have, oh, the bin man's gone sick, we can't collect it. It ain't going to be Wardown Park.
No,
it's going to be us.
This area here,
right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we can often get overlooked in the allocation of resources. So we need a voice that says, no, mate, not round here.
Yeah.
We need rights Rottweilers that make you know that if you come to our village of Marsh Farm and you're a service provider and you're going to skank our people through mistreatment, we've got teams of rights Rottweilers who know what the score is. And then you're better defended as a community, and then the service gets better. So it's in everybody's interest. Yeah? So these regular assemblies where we hold providers to account and build a relationship with them, where we distribute grants, which are currently distributed by a small board of people, is all of a sudden distributed by the whole residents who want to get involved. And also we, crucially, in between those things, you have art, poetry, spoken word, art galleries for local artists, you know, to make it spice up democracy, we call it, make it an enjoyable day.
Yeah.
Not a bore fest where you end up with 5 same old faces, you know what I mean? So that, I'm excited by that opportunity to transform the way democracy is done in Luton. Because when it works, God willing, in Luton Marsh Farm, then it should be a model of betterness for other communities to say, well, with our own twinks and, you know, make it relevant to our own space.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do something like the same thing. And then we can end up with 20 wards across Luton.
They're all striving and thriving.
And working together in a town centre for them, you know. That's our vision for a better town, man. You know what I mean? And so you'd have a better democracy, you'd have resources which are better distributed by residents.
Yeah.
And who are aware and awake to it. And ultimately end up with better services, happier people. But it needs to come from below. Right? Because from the top down, good intentions, man, often lead us on the path to where you don't want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if they're coming from the top down, with all the best intentions, and some people have got great intentions, it's difficult to move through the bureaucratic machine and make stuff happen. Yeah, because like you said, there's some people in there who are just habitual blockers, really,
yeah, exactly,
of new ways of doing things, you know. So yeah, I love Luton. It's got a great future, I think, but we got work to do.
We definitely have. But listen, man, we're going to do that together. My brother, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And again, I just want to thank everyone here at Marsh House who puts the effort in, because honestly, there's been times where this podcast wouldn't be possible without it. So, and I'm one of the very few people who this helps to benefit. There's so many out there that I've spoken to across such a long period of time now, who hold you personally responsible for enabling their ability.
Me personally is a bit strong.
No, you personally, obviously like the collective but like they always talk about you, Glenn. The thing is you should never ever forget the importance of you, because without you, this becomes less possible. Not impossible, but less possible. So I just want to say thank you to you.
I am hopefully a civil servant.
I hope you're a good one.
Just servant.
No, my brother, thank you so much. Hey, I love you, Luton.
Love you, Luton.
Thank you.